So for jungle, the first thing is you have two objectives as a jungler. Because one, you wanna farm up to team fights to blow up the enemy carries as much as possible. And two, you wanna gank lanes to get them ahead or to get them back in the game if they're behind. So it's important to find a balance between those two. As a jungler, generally you're gonna start at your speed buff with the mid laner. I think it's better if the solo laner starts blue. So you immediately go to blue after your speed buff, and then you go to your back camps. You wanna get Hawk to hog the back camps, because if you don't and the enemy does, then he's gonna be quicker to lane, to mid lane. And then they're gonna get mid pressure, and then you're gonna lose your red buff. So basically you need to get the Hawk to prevent your red buff from getting invaded. If both junglers don't get, if the enemy jungler doesn't get Hog Water and you don't, then you don't really lose anything. But if he doesn't, and then you should get Hog, because if you do get Hog in that case, then you win mid pressure, and then you get that red buff again. So jungler is really different from most other roles except support, which is kind of similar. Because mid, solo, and ADC both have their own lane to farm, and the minions just kind of come to them, and they don't have to do much. But as a jungle, you have to farm all your camps on cooldown as much as possible, or you're gonna fall behind. So you're gonna start at speed, like every game. I prefer doing blue with the solo after that, and then Harpy, back Harpy. Then you get the mid wave. Then you get red. I like, if I have a mid with a lot of pressure, I like leaving them in middle while I get the mid camps, because that means the enemy jungle can't get the mid camps anymore, and my red isn't really at a risk getting invaded, especially if we have a good early mid with good wave clear. If I have a mid with bad wave clear and I go do mid camps, then my red is getting invaded, so I can't do that. It also works the other way around. If you see the enemy jungle going to mid camps and you know they have a bad early mid, like, I don't know, a Nuwa or something, who really doesn't do anything level 1 or level 2, then you can just go invade their red, and then if you go to their red buff, obviously you run back through Gold Fury to mid, because if you go the other way you could get caught off guard by the enemy mid jungle. Other than that, you just kind of farm your camps as much as possible. I give this example in ADC, I think, where if a camp, every camp respawns at roughly every 2 minutes. So if a camp is worth 100 gold, every minute you don't kill it, you could have had 50 gold more, because you're not putting the camp on cooldown and you're not getting the farm. As a general rule, if you can, you want to prioritize the neutral farm on the map. The mid harpies on the Gold Fury side aren't really neutral, but they're very easily invaded, so you want to prioritize those as well. Because getting those is getting you farm, but it's also denying the enemy team farm because they can't get it. Other than that, try to prioritize buffs over harpies, because they give more gold and XP, and they also give the buff to you or a teammate. Also get the shrine. It's not only your job to get the shrine, everyone should get it if they walk past it. but it gives 10 gold per camp, and it really adds up over the course of a game. And you only need to hit it once, so don't be lazy. If you walk past it, just hit it. You can also try to invade, but don't do this too early, because, well, very early you're gonna have the debuff shrine thingy that's gonna slow you and attack speed slow you, so you just screwed if the enemy sees you, and then you're just gonna die. But if you're invading after that, which is, I think, like after 30 seconds after minions spawned, it wears off. Or 1 minute, I'm not sure. But after that, you are still gonna be weak, and it's gonna take quite a while to clear a camp. So it's gonna take you, well, you're gonna be in the enemy jungle for a long time, and the longer you're there, the more risk you have of being spotted and then being killed. Early game, this is kind of a thought exercise, but early game camps are worth more, because you need less camps to get from level 3 to level 4 compared to level 19 to level 20. So one camp early game is worth a lot more, because it gives more XP relative to how much you need. This means that getting invades off early is going to be more valuable, but it's also going to be more risky, like I said. I think the sweet spot for invading is like level 8, 9-ish, because you're going to do a lot of damage to the camp most of the time, and you're pretty mobile. You have your ult, depending on what god you are, you can use that to escape. You have all your mobility, you have all your abilities leveled, and you can do a lot of damage, or maybe you can even turn a fight if you are ahead. Something else to think about is how much, like, if you want to gank, let's say you want to gank dual lane, and you have your dual lane is losing, they're like at that tower line over there, and the enemy is pretty pushed up, not that much, like in the middle of the lane. If you're doing oracles, you can easily go for a gank and try to kill them. But if they are not, like if your dual lane is winning and they're in the middle of the map and your enemies are over there, then you can't really do as much. So keep in mind the position of your teammates and the position of the enemy teammates if you want to gank. And also keep in mind what you can gain off getting a gank. So let's say the enemy is pushed up, you're like over here, your dual lane, and you're at oracles. If every buff is down, like this is down, this is down, this is down, everything is down, then sure, maybe you can get one kill, trade 1 for 1, but then is it really worth it? And you might be better off just pushing in mid lane, getting mid camps, and maybe try to invade somewhere else, or just get as much farm as you can. But if some of their buffs are up, then even though the kill is worth the same amount of gold that it would have been if everything was down, you're gonna get way more value off it, because ideally you are gonna invade their buffs and steal their farm. But even if you don't, it's what I said earlier, if they don't get their purple for a minute, if it's worth 100 gold, they lose 50 gold each minute. So even in that case, it's some extra value you're getting just because you're denying them from taking their farm, even if you don't take it yourself. Because buffs, like invades, are worth double, basically, because you're taking their farm away from them, and you're also taking farm for yourself. Some gods are gonna wanna gank more than others. For example, early game gods like a famous Arachne, blinking mid in level 1 is something I see way too much and it triggers me. Or like a Thanatos or Red. Gods like that are gonna wanna gank more early. compared to things like a Kali, who's gonna farm as much as possible until she gets like 5 items, and then she's gonna destroy every team fight. But you can't really count on the Kali to do anything if you're behind in lane. And also don't think every gank needs a kill to be successful. Even if you force, let's say you're red, and you ult in, the enemy, whatever, they're playing AMC, so it's an easy gank. You gank him with the ult, you force his beats, but he gets out. That means his beats are down for 160 seconds. That's more than a minute more than your ult is going to be down for. So that means you have over a minute to gank him again and get the kill the second time around, just because you got the beats the first time. So if you didn't gank him the first time, the second gank wouldn't have gotten a kill. Also, if you just force them back, or you just poke them out a bit, allowing your duo lane to get pressure, those are all things that can help your teammates in lane. Obviously, the same goes for solo and mid for the same scenario. Another thing you can do is, if your team wants to do a Gold Fury, you can try to gank the duo lane or the mid lane. Most of the time it's going to be duo lane, because if the enemy mid is up, you're not really going to want to do Gold Fury anyway, because they can steal it. But the Hunter, not so much, because they don't have as much secure. So if your team wants to do Gold Fury and you know the enemy ADC is still around, you can try to gank him and force him back, maybe kill him. That would be ideal. But even again, if you force him back, force his relics, make him too low to engage, anything like that will be a victory to help you secure the Gold Fury. For farming, you're the jungle, so basically every camp is fine to take. The only ones you don't really take, totem. I mean, you can take totem, but it's kind of a waste of time for you to take it, because you're not getting any XP of it, and it's not worth that much. And as a jungle, if you're ahead, you're gonna have way more impact on the game, so you want to get ahead as quickly and as much as possible. Other than that, everything is fine to take except the duo farm. You don't really take those. If you want to, you can take the Alpha Harpy in some situations, especially if your Hunter is getting out pressured and for whatever reason you can't gank. Maybe you're behind the enemy ADC, so you can't really gank him because he would just die. You can take the Harpy just to take it away from the enemy Hunter. Purple you don't ever really take, except again if you know it's gonna get invaded. Maybe your Hunter is dead, or he's under tower, so you just drop the purple so the enemy can't take it. That's basically the only situation I would say. The reason you don't take it is because if you are taking the Harpy and the purple too much from the ADC is just gonna get behind and it's gonna snowball against him. And generally you do have enough farm anyway to take anything else on the map, and always have something to do anyway. Ideally you would split red with your mid laner and blue with the solo laner, but that doesn't always happen. It's not always possible. Try not to take too much farm with the mid anymore. It used to be the meta to just farm together with mid, and you would do wave red camp, wave oracles, wave mid harpies, wave speed buff, and just do everything together. But it's more efficient at the moment to have the mid laner do more of the mid, and he would take like these camps with you. Maybe these back camps sometimes, but he doesn't split too much, and you definitely are getting these alone. Some people are gonna get these, but obviously just get them if they're up. Oh yeah, these are small. If you can get them with the mid. And you would get, put in what, this with the solo laner. And obviously in between camps, or in between camps, you can try to gank lanes. So what you would do is like mid would clear wave, and you would clear speed, and then you would go to backs together, and then mid would go to wave again, and then in this situation you would get mid camps alone if you can, and then mid would clear wave, and then you would go to red together, and then mid would go to wave and you would gank duo or something like that. And that's generally how how you would farm in jungle. Also, as a tip, you can always look at if you have speed buff, there's a timer above it that shows how long it lasts. It's 2 minutes, which is exactly the same as the camp takes to respawn. So if you see you have 5 seconds left on your speed buff, that means your speed is coming up in 5 seconds. That's an easy way to remember it, along with the circle filling up on the minimap. Which is, by the way, always something you should be looking at. Because if you're on the minimap, you can obviously see when the camps are spawning. But you can also see where the enemy jungler is. So, especially early game, both junglers are gonna start at speed. You start at your speed in blue. The enemy starts at their speed. It spawns at 20 seconds. If it takes like 8 seconds to clear, so you clear it at 0.28, that means the next speed is gonna spawn at 2.28 exactly. If at like 2.20 you have a ward in duo lane, and you see the enemy jungle is trying to gank duo, it would be over here, whatever. So you see the enemy trying to gank duo lane at 2.20, trying to get their duo lane ahead. Something you can do is just run over to their speed, because you know it's gonna spawn. Because you can see your timer, and you know it's the same, roughly. Give or take a few seconds. So you can just run to their speed and go take their speed pretty safely. Anything else? I wanted to say something else, but I kind of forgot. Oh yeah, as a jungle in team fights, it really depends on what god you play. A lot of the assassins are gonna wanna dive the enemy backline together with your solo laner and just try to kill them as fast as possible. If you play something weird like a Guardian, obviously you're gonna play a more supportive role in the late game, because you're gonna be building tanky or more bruisery. But as a general rule, as assassins, you want to just... most of the time it's even worth dying. Like, just blowing up the enemy ADC or mid and just dying for it is fine most of the time. Because as a team, you want your hunter to kill structures, and you want to have your mid to kill objectives like Fire Giant and Gold Fury. So if you kill the enemy ADC and you die for it, it's going to be infinitely harder for them to kill any towers. What about Loki? Honestly, I haven't played new Loki at all. Old Loki was the prime example of kill a carry and die. New Loki, I think, is less that. But I honestly haven't played him enough to really tell. Oh yeah, wards as a jungler. As a jungler, you're kinda all over the map, so you kinda just ward wherever other people aren't. Because other, like the mid, solo, and ADC are gonna have wards around their own lane, like here, the 4 entrances to mid. And I don't know, my solo lane has never ward, but I should at least walk there. Maybe even in Fire Giant, if it's late enough. So if you have those wards on the map, generally you're gonna help ward middle, because I placed, as you can see, 4 wards in middle. And mid can only place 2 wards. You should be helping middle with warding a lot. But if mid is covered, if their support, for example, is helping, as a jungle, you can try warding a bit deeper, because most of the time you're going to be very mobile. So if you put wards on camps like the red buff and this back camp, these are pretty easy to invade if you're mobile. And if you know where the enemy is, and you know the camp is up, then it's a free invade for you. Or if you know they're there when it's coming up, then you can get your mid lane and maybe your support, maybe even ADC in red, to come over and try to take a fight. Like for example, if you see the enemy jungle and mid at a red buff, and you call over your ADC and your mid support, and then you are there as well as a jungle, it's a 4v2. Which you should easily win every time, and then if you get a double kill, then you can do Cold Fury, for example. Isn't support going to mid lane? Why not make support ward mid instead of dual lane, since ADC is there? Yes. So these 2 wards at the both purple buffs are gonna be where the ADC is warding. Support is gonna ward Cold Fury. I feel like people underward Cold Fury at the moment because people are over-reliant on oracles. But even if you have oracles, I like having a sentry not just to deny the enemy team the vision of gold. So if you have the opportunity to do it, you can always rush it, and if they don't turn up in time, then you can just get it for free. So that's 1 ward of the support gone. That means of the 4 entrances, mid can ward 2, support can ward 1. That means there's already going to be 1 open. 3 out of 4 is obviously not bad, because you're going to see most things coming anyway. But I still think, and also support isn't going to have wards up all the time at mid. But I think you do need 3 people to help with the mid wards. Because the enemy is going to sentry it and you're going to counter sentry, and it's going to be a war for vision around mid. Because if they don't have any vision because you are sentrying, then it's just 3 ganks on the enemy mid all the time, and this goes both ways, of course. So the enemy can do the same to you and gank your mid lane a lot. So you want to get a lot of vision around mid to keep him safe. And then you can ward the red buff and the Harpy, like I said. I like using the vision shard on it if you still have it, if you're on level 12. On the red buff and the Harpy, because it doesn't cost you anything. And you don't really use it for vision, you just use it for the timer most of the time anyway. And then you can keep your wards for more important places where you actually need a lot of vision and a big radius. Something else you can do is have wards. Like, over here in the middle of the lane and mid. I'm pretty sure I mentioned this last week as well, but this allows you to see a lot of rotations going through the mid lane, like to both sides of the jungle, people walking past. Even in competitive, where you are in comps with your mid, it's gonna be useful because they're not gonna see everything in lane. If they're at red buff, or if they're backed, or if they're just wherever they are, not in lane, then you're gonna see the rotations anyway. So that's also a useful word to keep in mind if you want a lot of information. I think those are the most important words. You can also put a vision shard on the mid camps over here, because they are still worth quite a bit of gold, and if you can get them, it's a big advantage if you get a lot of them over time. Right now I'm gonna show you 2 examples of renegades using the strat I mentioned earlier, or last week rather, where what they do is they start at speed like normal with the mid and jungle, but the mid takes the speed buff. Mid goes to lane like he would usually, so mid goes to lane, and you go to red buff. You take the red buff, and then you go to the enemy red buff. And Solo doesn't get any help in this situation, so Solo is getting hogged by himself, and he's gonna clear the camp on his own. That's why he needs the hog. The advantage of doing this compared to going speed to blue to back to mid is you're putting your red buff on cooldown very quickly, which, like I said, every minute you don't get it is 50 gold wasted, and you're immediately invading their red buff. And the enemy, if they just do the normal route like this, you get this. I know my drawing is scuffed, but whatever. If they just do this and then they clear mid and then they go to red buff, you're gonna have done red before they get there. And at that point, you can maybe try to fight in middle. You can be really greedy and get these mid camps, but I don't think you should do that. But then you can get oracles if you want, which is Lasbot tried this once, but it kind of failed. You can get their back camps back and then start on your route again, where I think you go backs into speed and then do the normal route again. But yeah, the entire point is to deny their red buff quickly and get more farm because you're getting red buff earlier instead of back camps, which is worth more. So let me pull up the first example. Alright, you should be able to see it now. So this is against Sanguine 2 weeks ago. The enemy has Hebo Persephone, which is decent wave clear, or decent camp clear rather. It's nothing insane. Red and Hera are definitely gonna clear quicker. If you look at the minimap, you can see they're just starting at the red, the speed buff order. Shinto does what normal mids do, throw one ability while standing as close to mid as possible to get there as quickly as possible. So you can see they both cleared the camp. Red is going to red buff immediately. Hera and Persephone are already mid. And their jungle, or their solo laner Cthulhu, is at blue buff. He has Hawk. He hasn't used it yet because you want to wait until all 4 ghost minions spawn and then you Hawk to kill them as well. And Hebo is going to blue with Kukulkan to help him like a normal start. So Lesbra does red. He hawks red, and then he goes to the enemy red immediately. Hebo is going to red immediately. So usually Hebo here would go to the mid and help Persephone and then go to red. But it gets called by Wang Yu, the Hercules, that Ratatoskov is on the red buff. So Netriot is coming in, negating the wave, and Hebo is coming in, negating mid lane. The duo from RNG is coming to help, but Red is already out of position, and he dashes away from them. So now he gets caught. He gets kind of unlucky, I would say, that the last 2 shots hit through the wall. But yeah, now he got caught. The backcamps still aren't done on either side of the map. The mid harpy isn't done. Oracles aren't done. So at this point, Red is already behind, and I'm pretty sure they get smashed this game. And this is another example where it actually works out better. So I figured I would show one of each. So this is against PK. Tsukuyomi and Persephone have decent wave clear, or decent camp clear. It's definitely better than Hebo Persephone, I would say. But I think Tsukuyomi level 1 is not that great. He needs like a few levels to get online. So, same thing. They did speed. Mid lane took speed. Red went to red buff. Guan Yu, the solo laner, does blue on his own with Hawk. He's already Hawked at this point. So, again, he does red buff, Hawks the red buff. And he goes to the enemy red. At this point, Tsukuyomi is coming over, but he's way later than the Hebo was last game. So now you can see Red is already basically out of there, and he got the red buff for free, while Tsukuyomi didn't even know he was doing it. He just walked in now and does the backup because it's to farm something. And Red is now also getting the oracles. So that means he got the enemy red buff and oracles, while Tsukuyomi got his backcamps on dual lane side and his backcamps on on solo lane side. Red is also gonna try to get these, but they're already down, so now he's just gonna back and start his wood again. But yeah, at this point, Renegades is already up. Well, it's blocked by the title. But Renegades is already up almost 100 gold in a minute, just because the way they start the game. And I'm pretty sure Red is ahead in XP by quite a bit at this point. The only thing you need to watch out for if you're doing this is you want to... Let me share my other screen again. Please, Discord. Okay, there we go. You want to be careful of getting your camps invaded in return. Because if you are, let's say you are red team, because that's what Lesbo was, and you are over here, and your mid lane is just in his mid lane. Got Sol over there, and Duo over there. So this means that your or the enemy mid jungle are gonna be over here, and they're gonna have Zola over here. So on this side of the map, they are gonna have a 3v2 advantage, because you are not gonna be able to impact the game over there, or not as quickly rather, because your rotation is gonna take way longer than the enemy mid jungle would. So a good counter to this is taking these mids as well, and taking these packs, because they're also gonna be up. And maybe you can also get away with this, but getting this Harpy is risky, because you're walking into the territory where the jungle of the red team in this situation could easily impact the game again and try to fight you there with the mid. But invading the mid camps and the back camps at solo side is a good counter, I would say. And at that point it might even be better for the blue team, because they're getting more farm. I think this strategy is mostly based off the enemy not knowing you're doing it, and it just being a surprise, and they need to react to it in the moment. Another quick note about this, I've only seen Lesbo do it in SPL, and I've only seen him do it on red. But I still think it's interesting and it might work. Maybe it's not perfect yet, but I think there's something there. The only issue I see with it is if both junglers do it, then they're gonna fight at Gold Fury, because they're gonna go like this on both sides, like this. And at that point, you're both kinda losing farm, and you're both gonna be behind of your team. And that means you're both gonna have less impact on the game. So it's kinda awkward in that sense. Are there any questions? So I think I've basically said everything I wanted to say. Anyone? Anyone? Well, if nobody has any questions, then I think we'll leave it here. Good night.